Moved by Councillor Bjorkman, forced into it. Councillor Caxero supports. Councillor Bjorkman.
I think this is a great idea that they're taking this change to their new, even the name of it being ACT. It just shows that it's something that we're doing as a municipality, trying to reinvigorate a committee that really should bring a lot of notoriety to our town, to support our culture, to support the arts. We've got a lot of groups in town that would love to get involved with different things, and this will just give them another vehicle to use. So I really think it's a great idea.
Anyone else? Deputy Mayor Malash.
Thank you, through your worship. I too really like the name ACT. I'm not sure who came up with it, who wants to take credit for that, but arts, culture, and tourism, I think we'll go quite a ways, and I think you're going to see a lot of interest by different members of the community, cross-section across the whole community, and this was I too believe to be a great step in the right direction to bring our town to get more attention and so on. Thank you.
Councillor Caxero.
Through you, your worship, I believe that this committee now might serve the same purpose as Communities in Bloom. I see it as a committee that's going to unify our municipality, all four centers, and I think there's going to be some true benefit from it.
Thank you. All in favor of the motion? Motion carries. L, Corporate Service Report, Number Clerk 2014-011, regular council meeting dates.
Move receipt.
Councillor Caxero moves, supported by?
Support.
Councillor Vogt. Any questions? All in favor of the motion? Motion carries. M, Corporate Service Report Number 2014-32, 2015 tariff of rates, cemeteries. Councillor Caxero moves, supported by Councillor Vogt. Any questions? All in favor? Motion carries. N, Planning Report Number 2014-51, rezoning application ZBA-05-14, Richard Patricia Mailing, 35 Gordon Street, Essex Center, Ward 1.
Move the recommendations.
Councillor Bundy, Deputy Mayor Malash supports. Any questions? All in favor of the motion? Motion carries. O, Planning Report Number 2014-52, right-of-way encroachment request, Amy Bell's Fashions Incorporated, Kevin and Vivian Bennett.
Support.
Moved, supported by Councillor Bjorkman. Any questions?
Randy.
No, Randy. All in favor of the motion? Motion carries. P, Planning Report Number 2014-53, Woodview Estate Subdivision Phase 2, release of securities. Deputy Mayor Malash, Councillor Caxero. Any questions? Councillor Vogt.
Just a correction for the camera. I think you said 5-3, it's 5-2.
Planning Report 2014, mine says 5-3. Previous one was
Mine says 5-2.
5-2.
Just as long as I'm 5-3? Okay, very well then.
Okay,
Mine says 5-2.
yeah, that was 5-2. Eh?
Yeah.
That says 5-2?
Previous one was
Okay,
5-2.
all right, as long as it's recognized.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks. You see all. Councillor Caxero.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Nepsey. The remainder of that monies that we're going to retain, $27,000, will be returned in about a year. Is that correct?
Yeah, through your worship, yep. Yes, that's correct.
Okay. All in favor? Motion carries. Which one am I on here now? Q Planning, report number 2014-54, medical marijuana production facilities.
Move the recommendation.
Moved by Councilor Caxero,
Second.
supported by Councilor Vokes. Deputy Mayor Malash.
Through you, your worship. So my questions are to Mr. Watson. I'm guessing that some of these came from portions of other communities' bylaw that they have in place.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, Health Canada introduced very stringent legislation in 2013, and what you would call the ma and pa operations are ceasing. And new, very complex multi-million-dollar facilities are taking their place. So all municipalities have been looking at this issue. And I gave you the report from the town of Lakeshore that Kim Druck did, the planner for town of Lakeshore, which basically did a summary of what other municipalities have done locally or are doing. And we're basically going down the middle. Because we are committed to agricultural production, it's a very important part of our economy here. It was my position that this should remain an agricultural use, but there are deficiencies in our zoning bylaw and our official plan which have to be addressed. And so the recommendation that I have set out in front of council is designed to address those and basically open the door for public discussion through a statutory public meeting, which we'll hold probably in January.
Richard. Councilor Vokes.
Thank you, Your Worship. I think it's important. I think it's important, obviously, recognizing the sensitivity of this particular report, that this council is only accepting then the key word being in principle. So for anybody, as it moves forward tomorrow, who may hear this, it's in principle at this point, and it certainly hinges off of a statutory public meeting. But I think in terms of the discussions that will take place tomorrow, and I guarantee you they will, that at this point, it's only accepted in principle. It doesn't mean we're ribbon cutting and moving forward. We'll have, after public approval, then we'll move with it.
Deputy Mayor Malash, sorry.
That's okay. Thank you. Through you, your worship. So, and I was just going to mention the same thing that Councillor Vokes has mentioned. Please, everyone, just keep in mind that this is something that we've just put in place to open up the discussion, and we absolutely do want public input into what we want this to look like in the end. You know, there's some suggested separations, minimum separations that I think might come into question, and also I believe that right now we're pointing towards agriculture zoning, and although that this came from Lakeshore, that they actually went with an industrial zoning for their legalized operations. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
If I could clarify, Mr. Mayor, Lakeshore actually is going on a site-specific basis. They actually are not defining it as industrial or agricultural. They're having a separate definition for it and a complete description in their official plan for it. So they're totally isolating medical marijuana production from any other use in their official plan and zoning bylaw. So that's basically the extreme response, I think. The other municipalities, like Windsor, for example, have no regulations above their normal agricultural provisions. So, basically, as a talking point, this recommendation sort of goes down the middle. And as Councillor or Deputy Mayor Malash says, and Councillor Vokes said, this is to get the public discussing it, because there has to be something there for them to chew on, to deal with, and that's the idea.
Deputy Mayor Malash.
Mr. Watson, if anybody from the public wanted a copy of this, is it on the website? Can they get it off the website, or is there copies at the office that they could get?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, it will be available online, and the report's actually going to be fleshed out. There'll be more substance to the next report for discussion purposes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. Anything else?
One
Vokes?
last thing for the record, too, from council is the intent is to have the public meeting in January, Jeff? Is that right? Sometime in January?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
All in favor of the motion? Motion carries. Down to S, Corporate Services Report Number Clerk 2014-010, Insurance Request for Proposal Results. Councilor Vokes? No.
I'll move the recommendation.
Moved by Councilor Caxero, seconded by Councilor Bjorkman. Any questions? Oh. Councilor Bundy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A question through to, I believe, Donna. Donna, I know that there are 4 companies that bid. Do we have the opportunity to go to our current insurance provider and counteroffer?
Through you, Your Worship, no, that is not an option. It's not, that would be very much criticized under procurement law, to go back now to your former supplier, because they bid openly and transparently, and we just would not do that.
And the savings is 149,000 difference?
Yes, that's right.
This one is really difficult for me, and I don't know, maybe it's too close to home, but our current insurance provider has a business in both downtown cores, and if we switch, I feel like, welcome to one more vacant building in Essex Center and Harrow Center.
Councilor Vokes?
Thank you, Worship. I'm obviously concerned about the empty real estate, but outside of that, in terms of $149,000, there's no doubt it's a lot of money. There's no denying that it's a lot of money. But in 2014, when at every opportunity, people sue you, and when I look at the history of the current insurance provider, in terms of settlements and different things as we move forward, I can't help but look at the 1% fault rate at a stop signs or anything that could cause an accident. With all that being said, I'm a little nervous about changing our underwriter for insurance, and one is based on their history, and secondly, I got to bring to light of the council of the day that approved the removing of our current municipal policing, and then we moved to OPP. Because it was very clear it was a cost-saving initiative, and that was one of the reasons why it was done. But I remember myself and Councillor Malash held fast on that we don't get rid of them. And now today in 2014, the cost of the OPP has gone through the roof. And I have the same fear with the insurance company. They fine line it, they enhance it, they look at it, they go back into their boardrooms, they come back with another submission. It's reflecting $149,000 today. We take them on as our underwriter, and 2 years from now it's par, in 3 years it's more. When we got a good provider today, we got an excellent provider today. And I got to look to administration. How many times has our provider stalled us on terms of settlements? It's hard to be found. So I'm encouraging council, irrelevant to the, I shouldn't say irrelevant to the $149,000 because it's obviously financial diligent to look at that. But on the other foot is you get what you pay for sometimes, and I'm worried about that lowballing to obtain it and get it, and then it changes. I would like to see the and I know we can't. If the insurance company had a willingness to lock their fee in at a given amount over the next 5 years, I wouldn't be so apprehensive about changing. But I have a fear of a 2 or 3 year progression changing what we're doing today, and it's good business we're doing today with our current provider.
Councilor Caxero.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Donna, if you could just explain, because price is only one factor in the RFP. It's on a point system. So unfortunately, yeah, the cost is $139,000, but that wasn't the only reason why our insurance company wasn't selected. $149,000. That was only 30% of the point system. So Donna, if you could maybe explain the rest of it so that it's not just about price. It's, I mean, this company that they're recommending beat the other three by in more categories than just price.
Mrs. Hunter?
Yes, through your worship. Basically, the scorecard system is what was utilized to rate the various proposals. The fee proposal was 35% of the marks that they received. Municipal experience was 30%, so that was very high. Qualifications of the key personnel was 15%, financial responsibility of the company was 15%, and services offered, which are kind of the unusual type of things, 5%. So all companies, their proposals were rated by 5 independent people. We don't rate in the same room, we rate independently, and then we meet to discuss the ratings. And basically, Aon was the highest rating of all 3. They have been insurers for the County of Essex and other municipalities in the area, and have received good reports from those municipalities in terms of their services. So when we rate, it's not just based on price. We rate based on a whole lot of other factors, including their ability to meet the needs of a municipality.
Councillor Caxero, finished? Thanks. Councillor Vokes.
Just because there's a point system in place doesn't mean it's a reason for this council to support it. If I took every business in the downtown corridor and put it on a point system, whether they stay or they go, the downtown corridor tomorrow will be closed completely because they wouldn't have the support of this council. It's as simple as that. So now we're going to take our insurance policy and we're going to give it to somebody wherever. And that's what we're doing. We're not supporting our hometown businesses. You can say what you want, and you can enhance it as you want, and you can twist it all you want, and make it sound like a significant savings of $149,000 and they exceeded on the point system, but there's work leaving our community.
Mrs. Hunter, comment?
Through you, Your Worship, Aon is out of Windsor. They're not completely out of the county or out of the city. But over and above that, our bylaw is very specific, as is the Business Practices Act, where you cannot give preference to local suppliers. You can't. It's an act, it's a statute, it's regulation. We are governed by that. So when we consider a proposal, we have to consider it based on the criteria we have identified as being important for this proposal, and whether or not they're local cannot enter into that consideration. So, you know, if to go against our bylaw would be, it's not just going up against our bylaw, it's going against statute. I guess the other aspect of this is we're talking about our current supplier as if they were second in line here. They aren't, they're third in line. So I think it's important for council to realize that, you know, the top 3 are fairly close, but there's some significant differences, and we evaluated all of those differences when we evaluated their proposals.
Anyone else? I just have a comment. Rules aren't made to be broken. I think each and every one of us around this table speaks so highly about our administration, our staff. They are second to none. And for us to question something like this, hey, this could be my brother that runs this company. The rules are there, you know, and we better be following them. That's why we have rules. And I got you, Councillor Vokes. I cannot see us changing this thing. Like, after they found out, this company, that they weren't chosen, number one, they broke rules again themselves by contacting some of us. So, you know, and they know they can't do this, yet they did it anyways. Are we having an empty store? They're not going to go out of business just because the town of Essex hasn't got a contract with them. You know, so I'm going to ask a question right now, because some of us have talked more than once to the motion, and that's what I got to start doing, is clamping down, because we could be here all night, and tomorrow too, if I let, you know, you keep talking 2-3 times to a motion. So just remember, you're going to speak once. Once there's a motion on the floor, you get to speak to it once, unless you're the person that made the motion, okay? And then you get a second chance. Hear everybody, and then you'll get that chance. So, all in favor of this motion? Motion carries. Thank you very much. That was S, Steve. That was S. T, Finance and Business Service Report number 2014-04, Accounts Receivable, Collection, and Write-Off. This one bothers me. Councillor Caxero.
I'll move the recommendation.
Okay, moved by Councillor Caxero, supported by... Yes, and Sherry, you want to say something?
I think just a question to administration. I see a lot of write-offs there, and for some of them, it's like, you know, the town going in, what it appears to be, the town going in and trimming weeds and then not being successful in collecting those fines. Is that the case?
Jeff, thanks.
Through you or your mayor. Situations like that are where it wasn't directly applied to the taxes in the year that the work was being done and the ownership of the property has changed. So
That makes sense. So I have to pay for somebody else's weeds getting cut. Thanks.
we can recommend those to go over to collections.
I would personally like to see it go to collections because I don't think it's fair that some residents are getting off for $2,000, $1,700, $1,500, $700, $300. You know, that's a lot that adds up. And I think, you know, every penny counts in these years.
Councillor Caxero?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. I did have a discussion with Donna earlier on this, and she did assure me that for some of these charges, even though they are set out as write-offs, they will still try to collect on a lot of them. They just certainly want to put it out there that chances are probably slim, but that doesn't mean we give up. We will try to collect them.
Deputy Mayor Malash?
Yes, through you, your worship. I'm not sure which department would answer this question, but has there been something put in place to rectify the billing process so that if we do weed cutting, that it's billed timely so that we don't get stuck like this again?
Through you, your worship, yes, we've been following up on it directly, and as soon as the invoices come through now, we apply them. We don't wait, so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Councillor Vokes?
No, just at the end of this report, before we go to the next report, I got a question I'd like to ask.
Okay. So in favor of this motion? One more time, okay. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay. Councillor Vokes?
Thank you, Worship. I don't want to stall this, but does council protocol allow me to go back to that last report, the insurance report? Because in my frustration of where we were going with that, ironically, and I'll take the responsibility, I got vacuumed in to put my hand up, and my position is very clear that I don't support that the insurance going to the new provider. So I want to make sure that the records show that I don't support that. So is there a way of amending that?
Our clerk says she doesn't record who votes how, you know,
You either,
or,
okay.
yeah, you either do or you don't. She doesn't put down 5 and 2 or anything like that unless it's a recorded vote
Okay,
required.
thank you.
You're welcome, sir. I flip back, now we are, you, Corporate Services Report number 2014-34, Tax Adjustment, Section 357 point number 1.
I'll move the recommendation.
Moved by Councillor Caxero, supported by Councillor Bondi. Any questions? All in favor of the motion? Motion carries. V, Corporate Service Report number 2014-35, Composition of Board of Directors, ELK Energy, Inc. Councillor Caxero?
Through you, your worship.
We need to get this moved in the seconder and then we can discuss it, sir.
Well, that's what I was going to discuss, is that
Okay. Deputy Mayor Malash moves, supported by Councillor Bondi. Councillor Texero.
Certainly, I can appreciate administration suggesting that we just remove the two administrative positions as voting members and toe the line with going forward with 7 on that board instead of 9. I guess the reason, and I had suggested it back at our meeting on the 8th when we were filling the positions on the different boards and committees, I suggested to stay with 9 and increase the members at that board, 1 more from council and 1 more as a lay member. The reason I did that is I would have preferred to have seen us be able to select somebody from Essex Centre and maybe somebody from Harrow Centre to sit on the board, so have 2 from our municipality from the general public. But to do that, because the composition of the board, well, I mean, we could do that and end up with an 8-member board, but I think it's best to have an odd number. So therefore, that's why I suggested the 9. I'm not necessarily opposed to the 7. It saves our board or our utility. It saves a little bit of money, not having 2 extra members on the board, and that's in our best interest because we own the utility. But for the sake of 2 more board members, I don't know that it's going to break the bank either. I guess we'll see what everybody else has to say on it.
Deputy Mayor Malash.
Thank you, through your worship. I'm good with the recommendation going down to the 7. I see some merit in what Councillor Texero is saying as well, though. So I am good with, regardless of the direction that we go with point 2. With point 3, I still believe that the mayor should sit for the entire 4 years, and I do believe that the appointments should be for 2 years for 3 councillors and 2 years for the other 3 councillors. This is a board, and most of us that have, the councillors that have been here for the last 4 years have experienced being on this board. It's not a board where it takes a lot to bring you up to speed to what you need to know for making decision process with ELK. I've talked to a few of the administration at ELK to get their opinion as well as far as what they thought with switching up midstream. They weren't overly concerned about it. So from that perspective, I would say that I'm not overly concerned. I think it gives all members of council an opportunity to be on this board and gain a realization of how ELK works and what its involvement is with the community. So I would still like to see point 3 be the mayor sits for the full 4-year term. 3 members of council will sit for the first 2, and 3 members of council will sit for the final 2, so that all members of council have an opportunity to sit on the ELK board. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Anyone else? Councillor Bondi.
Thank you. We did do the 2 years last term of council, and it was great, I guess, as a new councillor having a turn on ELK. But now, not being on ELK for the past 2 years and being a councillor of an urban center, I've felt like a handicap the last 2 years because businesses are coming into my center, my particular ward, and I'm handcuffed because I have no way of accessing anything that's going on at the board. And also the board minutes are not public, so it's not like I can go to anybody to talk to them, really. So personally, and I've taken a light committee structure so that I could hopefully be on this board for 4 years, because I think it's going to be important for Harrow Centre that their council member be on this board. For people out there too, ELK services Essex Centre and Harrow Centre. It doesn't serve McGregor Centre or Colchester Centre, so that's another reason why I feel like I would like to be there for 4 years. So those are my comments. I won't be supporting the 2-year term. If the balance of council is interested in what Mr. Coxero has, then I'm fine with that too. I would be up to maybe not even adding another council member, but adding another community representative from each urban center. I think that would be an asset.
Anyone else? Going to ask Mrs. Hunter, she has a couple comments with regards to this, seeing how you made the reporting.
In terms of, I'm sorry, through you, Your Worship, what was your question?
The composure of this board, what your thoughts were, like you've sat on it for 4 years now, or 5.
In terms composition, I think 7 members is a more manageable group in terms of numbers. I still believe 4-year term for members of council is important. I had conversation with ALC's administration, and that's kind of a little bit different than what maybe they had conveyed to Councillor, our Deputy Mayor Meloche, that there were some difficulties in having to relay the information 2 times in that 4-year term. In terms of adding 1 or 2 more, 1 would be okay, but if then you're going to an 8-member board. Adding 2, you're putting the balance of power in the hands of the residents, not in the sole shareholder, representing the sole shareholders. So that's something you've got to keep in mind when you talk about how many lay persons you want to add to that board.
Thank you very much. Councilor Vokes?
Thank you, Your Worship. I had the experience, like all council, to sit on there. And in my 2-year term on the ALC board, I sat there obviously with Mrs. Hunter and my colleague to the right, Councillor Bondi. And what I discovered at the end of a 2-year term was there were many projects that were, even after 2 years, were in initiation phase. And whether it be the consideration of burying lines under the street or to clean the street up, or the poles ourselves, or there was a host of different things that were being discussed in meetings, following meetings, and then one day you discover yourself not there. And now that torch is handed over to the next councillors that take chair, and it's like you're starting over again. And I'm sure if Mike Adet was here, the chairperson, what's his position, director, board? What's Mike's position?
Through you, Your Worship, it's Chief Executive Officer.
Chief Executive Officer, if Mike was here to share with us, I think he'd be sitting there and would strongly oppose the 2-year term in terms of what's healthy for ALC and what isn't. I think it proved not to be politically healthy. I think it proved not to be corporate healthy, and I don't think he would support a 2-year term, and nor will I again.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Steve? Councillor Bjorkman?
Yeah, I like the idea of having a resident from Harrow Centre from Ward 4 and from Ward 1. And if it went to an 8-person board, well, a tie is a fail, right? I mean, it becomes, that is what the vote will be, and you move on from there. But it gives better representation, and I think we just need to look for that in all of the things that we're doing. And as long as we can represent our town completely, I think that's a good idea.
You didn't move it, did you? I can't let you speak again. Sorry. Sorry I clamped down now, earlier. So I have a last comment here. I know, as chair, I've talked to Mr. Adet quite a few times, and I know if he had his druthers, he would rather have 4-year terms for everyone than 2. Not that we couldn't do it, but that would be his druther. As it says in here, there should be a user of ELK, whoever the person is, but would we have to change our structure? Would we have to change something, Donna, to have 2 people out there, and then we wouldn't have, the majority with council members? Like if we were to have the 1 person from Essex, which is Colchester, McGregor, Harrow, and
You're suggesting that we would have residents that are not necessarily ELK users?
no, they're supposed to be an ELK user. But if we were to appoint someone from Harrow, Colchester area, and 1 from here, like it just says the town of Essex, so we have 1 person. So I don't know if we've ever at our appointee meetings, committee meetings, when we appoint people for these, if anybody has ever appointed more than, well, Nick Spitaleri was the last one for 4 years. I wondered if there were any other names put in that we voted for that position or not. Like,
Through you, Your Worship, when you were considering the appointees for the last term from residents, you considered all the appointees regardless of where they came from in Ward 1 or Ward 4. And basically, I think if you were to add another so that you had one from Ward 1 and one from Ward 4, you probably would need to re-advertise just to make sure that you get, you know, those interested that maybe didn't apply the first time, but there's nothing stopping you from doing that. If you want to increase it to an 8-member board, that's fine. There's no special requirements.
but then, as you said, the majority should be from the town, like council members.
Well,
We're running this thing.
through you, Your
belongs to
Worship,
us.
my first go at this report was to suggest that you add another resident, because at the end of the day, ELK is not only they're acting on behalf of the sole shareholder, but it's acting on behalf of our residents and what is good for our residents. I guess there's the requirement, if you go that route where it's 4 and 4, if council is totally opposed to something that's being proposed, then they're going to have to convince at least one to vote in on the same side of it. So it means that you have some work to do in terms of, you know, say they wanted to sell the company, and the 4 resident representatives said, yep, let's sell her. And, I mean, that would ultimately have to come to council anyways, but just as an example, it could be something like that, where it could be not in the best interest of the town or in the best interest of ELK, but because it's 4 and 4, you know, it can go both ways. They only have to persuade one council member. Likewise, council only has to persuade one resident member. But there's always that, you have to work at it. It's a little bit more difficult.
Okay, so we have 2 proposals here. Councilor Caxero.
Can I ask for a recorded vote, please?
Yeah, which one are we going to choose?
Because I was going to do something different, and I wasn't allowed to.
So what's that at the bottom?
We have to vote on this, because the motion was for
Second one. Oh, okay.
unless,
So we all clear? Should
unless
I read that?
the seconder wanted
Yeah.
to change.
Now, the mover and seconder could change something in this. Like a friendly amendment, like if you wanted 2 at large.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. So. It's that whole motion, Randy, I guess. The composition for the next 4-year term be as follows. 4 members town council, 1 member at large who is now customer in the town of Essex, and I'll say which is presently filled by Nick. 2 members at large who are ELK customers in the town of Kingsville and or the town of Lakeshore to represent ELK customers outside the town of Essex, which are Mrs. Gunning, Catherine Gunning, and the warden, Tom Bain. 3 board members representing the town of Essex are for full 4-year term. And that report, corporate services submitted by Donna Hunter, recommending composition of the board of directors be received, and the composition of the Elk Board of Directors for the next 4-year term be as 4 members of the town of Essex Council, 1 member at large who is an ELK customer in the town of Essex, 2 members at large who are Elk
I'm all
customers.
set, thank you. I just
Okay.
want to know that.
Okay. Any other questions? Beg pardon? Oh, Bill wants a recorded vote, okay.
Before I start the recorded vote, I ask that you reply either support or you oppose the motion that's on the floor. Councillor Kexera? Councillor Bjorkman?
Oppose.
Deputy Mayor Malash?
Opposed?
Mayor McDermott?
Support?
Councillor Bondi?
Opposed.
Councillor Vokes?
Oppose.
With a recorded vote of 6 opposed and 1 in support of, the motion is defeated.
Councilor Caxaro.
I'd like to make a motion that the composition of the Elk Board of Directors for the next 4-year term be as follows. Mayor McDermott and 4 other members of council, 1 member at large from the Essex Center, 1 member at large from Harrow Center, 2 members at large who are ELK customers in the town of Kingsville and/or the town of Lakeshore to represent ELK customers outside of the town of Essex.
One question, sir. You made mention that they had to be elk users in Kingsville and Lakeshore. How about Harrow and Essex?
Also.
Also, okay, thank you, sir. Any questions to the motion?
Through your worship, I need clarification. Councillor Kexero, did you mean that item C remain the same, that 2 members at large who are elk customers in the town of Kingsville and/or town of Lakeshore to represent elk customers outside the town of Essex?
That's correct.
You want that to remain the same, but you want Mayor McDermott and 4 council members, 1 member at large from Ward 1 who is an elk customer, and 1 member at large from Ward 4 who is an elk customer.
Correct.
Thank you.
Any further questions? All in favor of that motion? Motion carries. 100%. Thank you. Correspondence, Windsor Essex County Environment Committee, November 13, 2014. Moved, supported by Councilor Vokes. Chris?